Hey everyone, it's Matty Griffin, better known as a fanatical futurist. Now, one of the things I'm asked very regularly basically is about the state of emerging technology regulation. Now, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's Web3, crypto, blockchain, whether it's virtual reality, metaverse, etc., etc., etc. Now, this is sort of why I find this particular piece of news interesting. So this is actually in the New York Times, but there's lots of different press outlets that reported this. So last week, Sam Altman, who is one of the founders of OpenAI, which created the popular chatbot ChatGPT, a large language model that essentially is now starting to become multimodal and has sent shockwaves around the world, went in front of US Congress to essentially demand that artificial intelligence is regulated. Now, on the one hand, I've been saying for a very long time that artificial intelligence should be regulated. However, there are a whole variety of different problems with that. So firstly, the lawmakers, especially in the United States, have no idea basically about the capabilities of artificial intelligence. And we've seen basically their capabilities when it comes to emerging technologies, when characters like Mark Zuckerberg have actually got in front of them and they've been asking how you send emails via WhatsApp, or if TikTok actually has access to people's Wi-Fi routers, etc., etc., etc. So on the one hand, it's all very well and good asking for regulation, but there's a massive gap in understanding at the lawmaker level on what these technologies are capable of. However, there's actually sort of a little bit more to the story than that. Now, some people think that Sam Altman wants AI regulation because if you have regulation, it creates a moat between him and any new competitors that are actually coming along. However, when we actually have a look at the development and the future direction of artificial intelligence, we've already got AIs basically that from Google, for example, that are evolving themselves and designing new artificial intelligences. We have AIs from Google, from OpenAI, from Meta, from Alibaba that are evolving beyond their own programming. So, for example, a little while ago, OpenAI's, or one of OpenAI's artificial intelligences spontaneously learned maths. And the experts within OpenAI publicly went on record and said, we don't know why it did that. We had Meta's artificial intelligences start collaborating with one another, which is something they weren't supposed to be doing. We had other artificial intelligences from Google that started making up their own language to communicate with one another and then encrypted it. So even if we start talking about using explainable artificial intelligence within the construct of regulated artificial intelligence, there's a problem there. Let alone basically when we start expanding out basically the future of AI, basically, which is increasingly quantum artificial intelligence based, neuromorphic computing artificial intelligence based. I can even show you chemical and liquid artificial intelligences and biological artificial intelligences. I can even show you a 3D printed, what we call diffractive artificial intelligence as well. So the likelihood that we can actually regulate an artificial intelligence or a technology that is evolving at speed is kind of insane in itself, which then sort of brings us to the fact that we actually need a completely different way to regulate these technologies. Guardrails basically won't actually work. Yet there is no way that we are going to be able to control artificial intelligence because we can't control human populations. If you actually think about trying to create the perfect set of regulations to control artificial intelligence's behaviors, so it doesn't go off and wipe out humanity or kill a load of people in a hospital or whatever it happens to be, it's insanely difficult to control anything. We can't even necessarily control pets, and that's, you kind of have to argue basically that pets basically are actually slightly dumber than most artificial intelligences today. And I'll do another little video blog in a minute on that one because I've been having little chats basically with Jeff Hinton, who is the godfather of artificial intelligence. However, what I kind of find interesting about Sam Altman basically is he's gone in front of US Congress basically to essentially request that artificial intelligence is regulated, but then went over to Europe and said that if Europe regulates artificial intelligence too heavily, he will actually pull out of Europe. That's it. Now, is this guy wanting regulation or doesn't he want regulation? Or is it more about having the right kind of regulation to support his particular business, his projects, his interests, and so on and so forth? Because to be in the US and say, I want regulation, but then to go to Europe and say, actually, I don't want tough regulation, and if I have tough regulation, I'm going to actually leave. So this story is actually Gizmodo, which you can see up here with all the adverts and everything else. I mean, isn't that kind of counterintuitive? I mean, you either want regulation or you don't, and there's always going to be a good level of regulation, but this just kind of seems almost black and white. However, there was also another sort of interesting thing that sort of popped into my head when it comes to this, because if you are the person who is sitting in Congress advising US Congress about the kind of regulation that is the best fit for a particular technology or industry, then you can actually help shape those regulations. Now, there was one other character that the US Congress, as well as the US SEC, relied on very heavily for information on the best way to regulate particular industries. And this one was the FTX founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, who ended up in one of the biggest frauds in US history, because while he was actually advising US Congress on the best way to regulate the crypto markets, etc., 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 he was actually doing everything that he shouldn't have been doing and is now facing a massively long prison sentence. So we need to be very careful who's actually sitting in the chair asking for regulation. We need informed decision makers, informed policy makers. This is not just some game. You know, when we have a look at regulating artificial intelligences that are increasingly superior to human intelligence, and again, I'll do a little blog on that in a minute, this is not only uncharted territory, it is dangerous territory. So if you have any ideas on how to regulate artificial intelligence, basically then, drop them in the comments and everything else. DM me. Basically, you can find me across a whole variety of different SOC media channels, basically, as well as 311institute.com. And nice talking to you. Take care. Have fun. Goodbye.